Hello friends, the topic is requirements engineering. Friends, in the requirement engineering, user and system requirements, we have to learn these topics: user and system requirements, functional and non-functional requirements, type and metrics, a spiral view of requirement engineering process. These are the topics we are learning in this second unit. Software requirement specification. The software requirement specification document in that the structure of SRS, ways of writing a SRS, structured and tabular SRS for an insulin pump case study. These are the topics we are learning in this unit. Requirement elicitation and analysis. In that process, requirement validation, requirement management, also here case studies, the information system case study, mental health care patient management system. Friends, requirement engineering is a process of establishing the services that the customer requires. That means it is a process of establishing service and the constraints under which it operates and is developed. This is requirement engineering process. Requirement engineering is a process of identifying what customer requires from a system and how it can be fulfilled with available resources. That means manpower, time, cost, hardware and software resources, etc. Requirement can range from a high-level abstract statement of a service or of a system constraint to a detailed mathematical functional specification. Here are the types of requirements. That is, first one, user requirements, system requirements, software specification. In the user requirements, collection of statements in natural language, also description of services that system provides and return for customers. In the second type, that is system requirements, structured document of detailed requirements and services provided by the system, where contract between client and contractor. In the third type, that is software specification, here detailed software description that can serve as a basis for design or implementation written for software developers. These are the types of requirements. Now, requirement engineering task. There are 7 tasks in requirement engineering. First one, inception. Second, elicitation. Third, elaboration. Fourth, negotiation. Fifth, specification. Sixth, validation. And 7, requirement management. In the first task, that is inception, here specifying the beginning of the software project. For what purpose the software is required, we have to specify this in the inception phase. It is a beginning phase or starting phase where stakeholders do rough feasibility study and identify scope of the project. Then in the inception, the purpose is to establish the basic understanding of the project to find out all possible solutions. That means establish effective communication between developer and customer. This is most important role in the inception phase, that is communication between developer and customer. Second phase is elicitation. In that, requirement discovery. Sometimes it is difficult to understand the customer's needs because it is difficult because customer may not specify sufficient requirements or may specify too many requirements sometimes. Also, sometimes customer find it difficult to communicate with system engineer about their needs. That means customer is having many problems or difficulties to communicate with system engineer about telling the actual need of customer to the developer. Also, in the customer may give ambiguous and confusing requirements to the developer. This is second phase. In the third elaboration phase, information about requirements is expanded and refined. That means what are the information about that requirements that is very expanded and refined. The technical model of software function, features and constraint is prepared. Here modeling and refinement of requirements is done. User scenario are created and refined. Each user scenario is parsed and various classes are identified. Then the attributes and services of these classes are defined. Relationship among these classes is identified. Thus, various UML diagrams are developed during this task. This is important that UML diagrams are developed in this task. Finally, analysis model is get developed. Fourth phase is negotiation. In this phase, sometimes customer demand for more than that is achieved. At the time, to handle this requirement, engineer must convince the customer by solving various conflicts, by ranking the requirements, setting priorities of the requirements, eliminating, combining or modifying the requirements using iterative approach. So negotiation phase is important because here actual communication between customer and developer or engineer is carried out and developer convince the customer. Fifth phase is specification. Specification can be a written document. It is a written document, mathematical or graphical model, collection of use case scenarios. This is important in the specification phase. That is here, which are the documents that we are arranging that are a written mathematical or graphical model, collection of use case scenario. In standard specification, requirements are presented in consistent and understandable manner. Specification is the final work product of requirement engineering process. It describes the functions, constraints, and performance of computer-based system. Sixth phase is validation. In this phase, requirement specification is analyzed for finding any consistencies, omissions, and errors to correct or modify. A mechanism for validating requirements. Formal technical review. In formal technical review, team validates the software requirements. Review team consists of requirement engineers, customers, and end users, and so on. So this team identifies conflicting requirements, inconsistencies, or unrealistic requirements. Seventh phase is requirements management. In this phase, process of manage, track, and change the requirements. Each requirement is assigned a unique ID. After finalization of requirements, traceability table is developed which represents dependencies of requirements on one another. Thank you.